the only way to start your day.
Let's, open up some of these things and try to get a bit of an understanding. And of course, that there are happenings over the last couple of days that we're bringing in and weaving into this conversation. But before we do, Dennis this week has taken us to Mali.
Mali. When you think of Mali, think about Mansa Musa and why Mansa Musa does exist. Because of the vast wealth of resources they do have, especially gold, right? And gold in the country, many continue to say, is part of the reason why the country is unstable today, because everyone wants the gold, but they do not want to pay the market rate for that. But that notwithstanding, we see the moves that are being made by those in leadership today to try stabilize the country so that the locals can enjoy everything that comes with the resources given to them by God. But let's go to the proverb. Indecision is like a stepchild. If he doesn't wash his hands, he is called dirty. If he does, he is wasting water.
How would you interpret Alenga first? You Alenga.
Alenga, you've been nominated. Yes.
Recap.
Indecision is like the stepchild. If he doesn't wash his hands, he is called dirty. If he does, he is wasting water.
I think the proverb opens up the paradox of life, that there are times you have to make a stand, and for whatever stand you make, there are consequences. They may be good or bad, but either way, you should not sit on the fence.
Yeah, it's true for something. Prof, now, how would you interpret it?
Well, I think Alenga has really nailed it.
Yeah.
But in life, sometimes you do something that you think is good.
Yeah.
You're blamed. You do something that perhaps is not good. You're blamed.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you ask yourself, what should I do? And therefore, you still need to do what you consider right and move on.
Yes.
But about Mansa Musa, with all those riches, I remember him going to Hajj.
Yeah.
And he carried so much gold. He was, distributing all over the world. And up to now, he's like the richest African leader. But was very generous and drove his country very well.
Very well. Yeah. He actually, when we talk about Timbuktu and how he changed that to be a center of religious education, just think about how he was thinking at the time.
Yes.
Okay. It's very interesting that we talk about riches that are being given out, but then how he then got those riches is very interesting as well, if you follow that story. And if we're able to make the connection with what's happening around the African continent today. But then we're zeroing into Kenya, and things have happened over the last couple of days. When we talk about development of the country, government leadership, and what is happening, are we able today, and we'll start with you, Prof, to look beyond an election as to the development agenda we're seeing taking the day? Can we separate the general election that's coming in 2027 from the things that we see happening, whereby 2060 is now the new target, or that community elders make it to State House and certain promises are being made in terms of what's going to be given to them? We have to do a split screen and see that happening, where on this other side we see health workers who are on strike, and essentially that has paralyzed medical operations in public facilities. Can we divorce this agenda from the election in 2027?
Well, I think, unfortunately, in our country, it looks like leaders believe politics, or how they play politics, that is the development. Because even after 2027, and God forbid that there will be, conflict, the politicians begin immediately to campaign for the next election.
Yeah.
And this is what has happened, most of the time in our country. And as a consequence, there is no focus on what were you wanting to come into the position to do. So that is one, negative culture that we have to debunk, so that people know you say what you think you're going to do, what's your manifesto, what's your agenda, what's your vision. And when you come into power, even before you come into power, like now, if you ask a lot of these political players, they may not exactly tell you what their agenda is. And you're supposed to actually think through, what it is, try to socialize it with the people. And therefore, when you are elected, spot on, you begin to implement. But in our situation, the focus is how do you get power? How do you maintain power? And it's incidental most of the times what really you will do with the people to secure, their development. Like now, there isn't much one can say has been done regarding young people, 75% of the population. And now it's only 1 year away to the next election. So I think we have to deal with this malaise of people are forever campaigning for power and not really asking what is this power for.
I mean, Alenga, right now we're being treated to Vision 2060. It's cool. But I personally look at Vision 2027. And why is that important to me? Because through Vision 2027 then, there was a manifesto that was given to the people of Kenya, which then was the vision of the government, the vision of the political class on what it is they wanted to achieve within that 5-year term, right? And with that then, if we pause as Kenyans and ask within the vision that all the 290 members of parliament, including president, senators, governors, and the promises they gave to the people, are we at a position where we're saying anything has been achieved, nothing has been achieved? That when we now embark on Vision 2060, it makes sense. Does it make sense to Kenyans today that 2060 is being announced, yet 2027 is still kind of foggy?
I think for me, what is imperative is trying to contextualize what it takes to build a nation. And when we are looking at what it takes to build a nation, then time becomes a very key component. How long does it take to build a nation to bring it to where you actually want it to be? About 63 years after independence, there is still a lot we are grappling with. We are still grappling with diseases. We're still grappling with educational inequalities, poor sanitation, the poverty levels that we cannot be able to catch up with. So putting that into context, is it something that we can say we can fix in 5 years, we can fix in 3 years, we can fix in 2 years? Absolutely not. It takes a whole journey. But then, when we are looking at the Vision 2060, then we must reference it to Vision 2030. What were the imperatives of Vision 2030, and where are we at, up to that point? So for me, I think it's important to consider another Vision 2060, because the issues that existed in while we were drawing Vision 2030 in 2018, in the year 2008, are very, very different. At that time, we did not have issues like the exponential growth of the internet, things like AI, scientific innovations. And right now, we are at a time where we're trying to compete with the entire world. And these are the issues these are the emerging issues. So how do we remap ourselves onto these emerging issues? And then now we can enter a different space where our competitive advantage will be perhaps how we adopt technology, like compared to other nations, other than our own individual pursuits as a country. So therefore, I see a conflict between where the world is, and as Kenya is playing catch-up game, where are we? And then when you bring it down to our own nuances, our local nuances, how do they fit in the international market? How do our domestic politics fit in the international market? Because today we are entering a space where you cannot afford to enter with tribalism. You cannot afford to enter with hate for one another. You cannot afford to enter with sloganeering. So it's a deeper conversation. And for me, I would like us to slough it off the garment of 2027 so that we see clearly. Is it about a certain president? Is it about the leadership of the country? Or is it about the Kenyan people? So where do we want to be as a Kenyan people? We could contend about who's in power today, but even after this regime is gone, we have a country to fix, and we have a global market that is not waiting for us.
Okay. Now, so there seems to be like so many moving parts to put into a vehicle, but unfortunately, it's not one vehicle. It seems to be different moving parts of different vehicles all at the same time, and we're trying to get somewhere. In all of this, Prof, how much does leadership matter to then bring out the right vehicle with all the correct moving parts to get where you want to go?
Okay, maybe before attempting to answer that, just to say one thought. Before coming to Vision 2060 or 2063, I don't know why it wasn't 2063 because that's the African agenda date. One would have first of all looked at Vision 2030 to evaluate what have we done, what is still a supplement, what is it that we haven't done, so that you make that part of a new vision. And again, I think it would have been important to actually indicate what is going to be the role of the citizens in terms of coming up with this vision. Is it just something that is going to be done by consultants, and then later it is presented to the people as a fait accompli, even if they are told there's a bit of public participation that is required of you? So I think sometimes you can begin something that you believe is important, but the way you begin it, from the word go, people just write off the initiative. And then you begin to ask, how come people are refusing a national conversation on this particular vision? And of course, there is the question of the previous visions. Have they been like the 2022 vision, bottom-up vision? To what extent has it been implemented so that you can give people comfort that whatever is now being proposed will be implemented? But I would imagine since 2060 I will not be around, others will debate this question.
You may just be there.
Those are many years. But now about leadership. Actually, at this point in time, we can see, several, as you said, several parts, several groupings, which are trying to, first of all, advocate for their positions and hoping that there will be a coming together, especially with the opposition, and the president also wooing many groups so that they also come to his side, and if possible, also trying to ensure that the opposition is not cohesive. And of course, we know that what we are calling development, what we are calling the country to go forward, everything rises and falls on leadership. And it is at whatever level, whether it's family level, whether it's school level, whatever. So one of the things that we have missed over time in our country is this division of leadership, so that there is, what is called an opposition, what is called a government. And they never think that there are times you address things as a, in a bipartisan form. Actually, the people who try to do that are the governors. Because even when they're elected from different parties, particularly at the beginning, they would see issues that required their common attention, whatever political party you're coming from. And that culture, with time, was a bit lost when political parties began to rein in their governors and tell them that you must toe the political line. But I am thinking that as we go forward, it is necessary for, even as people are competing for positions and so on, we must always find some common ground to be able to say there are times we are going to talk about the nation that is called Kenya, without necessarily just pursuing our political ambitions. Because if you don't create that space, then it means that when you have conflict, you have to ask for their anans, you have to ask for, outsiders to come and help
come in.
you.
Yeah.
And if people don't believe even the religious sector can be a broker, if they don't believe, anybody, business people, civil society or whoever, then it means that when you have an issue, then the country breaks down. And so one is looking at particularly the leadership that is emerging from the opposition, and asking, are they going to be together? And even if they are going to be together to promote what agenda? Because again, the young people are waiting to see who is going to stand up for them with an agenda that addresses the issues. And it's not just the young people, all Kenyans. So I can say that as of now, one can see a leadership deficit, but that does not mean that it will not rise to the occasion. We are waiting to see how it arises to the occasion.
Yeah. And with that, you've mentioned something on bipartisan conversations or unity that needs to happen, whether it's in the leadership class. But that seems to be something that we don't see quite often in the country. Say, case in example, even when you talk about if it's a finance bill, there is no where you'd say both sides are coming together to discuss this matter without dragging anyone on the dart. When it matters to do with security, we don't see that. It's always everyone pushing on the other or on pulling on their side. But then again, Alenga, how does that affect nation building and moving together as a country when you look at the example that is being set at that macro level where everyone is divided, say wananchi wako pamoja, but if that is the example that is set, how does that affect the nation in moving forward together?
Well, one thing we really have to work on is depoliticizing every conversation in this country, because every conversation starts from a political perspective and ends with a political perspective, so that we are not able to see clearly that what are things that generally must be developed for the sake of the country, and what are things that now we need to take positions depending on what side of the divide that we will support. Take, for instance, if you're going to build a road in the year 2026 and there is an election in 2027, what makes it a bad road because it was built 12 months to the election? It doesn't make it a bad road. There is no wrong time to make the right decision. And so I think this conversation has to start from the leadership of the country, and leadership means the people that we elect into offices. Are they giving us the correct trajectory, or are they sparking the right conversations? But we cannot forget a very key component of democratic processes all over the world, and that is the media. What type of conversations does the media incentivize us to participate in? Because media sets the conversations, it frames issues. So what type of issues are we going to perpetually frame so that the citizens can look at them? Do we oppose everything just for the sake of opposing, or can we grow from our mistakes? Because I picture a country where if the healthcare system is not working, then we ask ourselves, this is SHA that we have. What are we getting right about SHA, and what are we getting wrong about SHA, and how can we bridge this gap? And then we work from there. But also, it takes the initiative from government to be willing to accept that we may not get it right all the time. But you see, we have a situation where government believes it's right all the time, and the citizens believe government is doing the wrong thing all the time. But then who sets these conversations? The political class and the media. So if these two components now start unpacking things in a clear manner, so that we break them down to simple, nuanced narratives that Mama Mboga can chip in and have their contribution. The border guy can chip in and have their contribution. That's how a nation is built. But a nation is not built by scattered opinions. So that if I am, and now there's also another issue that comes in. We could have a political divide that constantly opposes what government does. And then maybe something happens and there's a working relationship with the government, and suddenly everything becomes right.
It's called broad-based.
It's called broad-based.
Yeah. So that's what leaves the common mwananchi asking. This guy was saying this is bad. At what point did it turn right? So do we include mwananchi in these conversations and in our Damascus moment so that they also buy into that conversation and we all flow together?
Okay, I'd like to take a break, but then maybe come back and then say, well, some of these things that are happening, though they may be amplified by media, are very clear. And if we look into, if you look into Nairobi, just a few months, actually it was 6 months ago to this month, where the same chiefs who were in State House yesterday, we were told that they were all going to have tablets for the operation. I mean, that's just one operational thing. Yep. The same chiefs were brought into State House yesterday and that were given another promise. And the question is whether these things will happen. Whether you like it or not, they come into the public arena. People are very clear about certain things. But then what do we do with that? We'll come back and continue this conversation. Alenga and Professor Kivutha Kibwana are with us this morning. We'll continue when we come back from the short break. Stay with us.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The only way to start your day.
Blow whether there will be a unified opposition. And the argument that has been given so far is that in order to remove what is seen in some quarters as the problem, that you need to be unified in order to do that. But does it matter then what happens after? I mean, very clearly, the president has said, well, you people say that I need to get out of here, but you've not told me what the solution is to all of this. And they on the other side are saying, we just need you to get out first and then we can deal with the damage. Yeah. Is that a good enough plan?
Part of what is frustrating, like to a student of constitutional law and constitutional politics and constitutional history, is the senior people in leadership today, at some point or the other, they have worked together. So if they have worked together from Moi days, then and once in a while they're in the same government. So when they come and they divide themselves in very clear terms, then again one must wonder, and this is a point which was made before, that they can be criticizing, then the following day they're invited into government or they invite themselves into government, and then, whatever they were saying was not right is now right. So it's only that the citizens have not been able to understand, because of lack of civic education, because of promotion of tribalism, tribal politics, they have not been able to understand that they're being played. And they're being played, big time. So even as I would imagine if I was the president of Kenya and everything that I do, I'm told it's no good. There is no single day that even some small thing, people will say, well, we think that was right. That must be a difficult thing. And it also means that even if another government comes in, it will be the same game. They will be told, there is nothing that you're doing. And you confuse citizens. And I'm not saying that, there are many things that are being done which are right as such. But I think there is more maturity required, political maturity required. And that is what happens in, what are called mature democracies. And that's, a point we made earlier, that it will be necessary to create spaces where people can, sit together and say, now we are not just fighting. Now we are trying, like if it's public debt, people need to sit down together and ask, this can actually create a major problem for the country. How is this to be solved? Because if the country falls, even those who think they'll come to power, there will be no country for them to be presidents and so on about. But having said that, I think it's good, the opposition saying that it wants to come together, and it will be good for them to do that. The president also is trying as much as he can to recruit more people to his side. But we really need to know what's the agenda for solving our problems, and it should be a realistic, agenda, where you cost it. You say, this is the kind of money we have. This is what will do this. From our experiences, we are able to deliver this, so that we really go to another trajectory. And even the young people are saying, I have listened to some of them saying, that they are now going to come up with a social contract. They are going to say that these are the things that we want. If it's education, university education, which is almost collapsing, actually a lot of the education, if it is health, if it is youth employment, so that they say that you will have to convince us that you can carry this agenda. This is our agenda. We are not just waiting for you to tell us, as you usually do, that this is what you are going to do, for us. So, of course, I'm excited personally with some of the young people who are coming forward to leadership, like Linda Mwananchi guys and so on. Although sometimes you can see them introducing elements, and I'm saying, but these are some of the old people and all that. I would personally, just want to be able to advise to, not to, my time was in the 90s, and like with Orengo and our Moite and all those guys. So I think the country needs a pause, so that even as people come together, they first of all respect each other, not this abuse of left and right, and they respect the citizens by talking truth to them and not just spewing vitriol. But of course, I'll be told that in politics, you put your enemy down and then you succeed. But I think we need to find a new formula for doing, our politics.
I think what Prof is alluding to is issue-based politics. And that has been said that is what is lacking in the country, because like what we've seen for a while is politics of sycophancy, how much can I bribe? It is a question of sloganeering, which is the catchy phrase that I need to come up with to entice the masses. But like Prof has said, we don't see where individuals coming to say, on education, the funding model, this is what we have. This is my proposal, and I implore on Kenyans to come. We have a discussion on how these will be fixed. That it is not only an agenda coming from the political class, but that Kenyans as well are included, and they understand exactly what the plan is moving forward. Our agenda on security, our agenda on economy. We have debt. I remember we're told that we will not borrow debt, you stop digging. What is the conversation with Wananchi on these issues that is a concern to them across the political divide? How do we fix politics of sloganeering and now start having issue-based politics that includes Wananchi?
Interestingly, one of the key pillars of the Vision 2030 was the political pillar, which stipulated that we need to have a democratic process that is issue-based, result-oriented, and people-centered. So that is well captured within that. But then when you look at the ground, you actually see we are too far away from actualizing that. But then the political games that Prof referred to happen in this way. We just switch sides, and then we compel the citizens that we have actually changed. Today, there could be a movement. Maybe you and I start a movement and we say we want to change this country. But then every time there's a movement in this country, every time there's a moment where you anticipate credible change could take effect, it is always hijacked by the same characters that have underperformed in the past, have been part of corrupt governments, they have dark history, but they just wash themselves overnight and they come and say, we're now pushing this conversation. And when they do so, then Common Mwananchi says they are fine. But then how do we empower our citizens in such a way that they're not going to vote for political parties, but they'll go deep down to understand who is this person, what do they stand for, and what contribution can they make if they are elected? Because what we do is just we vote parties. Today you'd vie on party X and everybody says, if you're coming with that party, we don't want you. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter the leadership qualities that you have, the integrity that you have, the vision that you have as a person. But they would deny you that opportunity because you did not enter into the outfit that Mwananchi wanted. The political razzmatazz that is created every time gets the person on the street thinking about the slogans more than the substance.
Yes.
But then how do we move away from that place? I look at a generational issue because we have the older generation who have gone through the folds of time. There is immense contribution some of them have made into the current Kenya that we have today. But then every good story must come to an end. But then when we cling on to the space for too long, we do not allow the space to grow. We do not allow for alternative views to come in. Then comes the question of the cost of politics in this country. Because you may have the ideas, you may have the will to change your country, but the political cost is way too high. How much does it cost you to become even an MC in this country? How much does it cost you to become an MP in this country, leave alone presidency? So that shutters out a lot of alternative views from the space. Then it becomes very clear that the person who has been in politics since 1992 and is not going anywhere anytime soon, then has enough money to run a political campaign for his local MP seat, to run a political campaign to become governor, to run a political campaign to become president, and so on and so forth. So that attachment of our electorate to what they can get from the politicians is what brings us here. Because the one who has the money is the one that now carries the day. And when that happens, then it becomes difficult for us to evaluate people based on the content of their ability, their character, and their personality. But then, this space we are in today, I think the people that can help us come out of here is maybe people of my generation, the millennials, the Gen Zs were right behind us, and maybe the generation that is coming forth. But still, you find they line up behind some old character and they push that one because he's the one who can pay the bloggers to blow the trumpet for him. He's the one who can dress up people in party attires. He's the one who can fund party activities and therefore gets recognized by the party more than these younger people. So how do we now use the numbers that we have and the political alternative views that we have for this generation so that we push people into leadership that have alternative views? When we push people into leadership that have alternative views, it doesn't matter who's the president, because this majority that now understands how governance works, understands the issues of younger people, the issues of unemployment, the issues of lack of education, or a very costly education that denies opportunity to so many young people, then these people are going to help the presidency to achieve this. But as long as we line the parliament, the county assemblies, the Senate with very old people that cannot really, walk away from our past way of doing things, then it becomes difficult to convince these people that there is lack. There's a population that is accumulating degrees and going nowhere with those degrees. They don't understand, because in the 80s and the 70s, you only needed to persevere through the school system and it would reward you. Today it's different. So who understands that better than the people that have grown through the same challenges?
Do we have any business, though, wanting to... aspiration, I believe, is good, and I think it is necessary for any developing nation, and that you then put, the boots on the ground for that aspiration to become a reality, and that you should want to grow. But can you do that at the behest of the basics that haven't been taken care of? I mean, we're here and we're talking about health workers on strike, for example, and that a lot of operations in medical facilities, in public medical facilities across the country have been paralyzed and will continue so until a basic agreement is met. And that we wake up on Monday morning to news of another gentleman who's been killed, beaten to within an inch of his life in police custody. So we talk again about the security of Kenyans. We talk about the health of Kenyans. We're now a bit worried because we're getting towards exam season and the invigilators for last year's exams are yet to be paid. We're talking about people who are still walking for kilometers every day. Even now, as we speak, they're looking for water to drink and use in their homes. We've been told that August and September are going to be incredibly dry months, essentially pulling Kenya again into that drought situation, which is going to require food rationing. I can go on, and it looks as though we're pointing out the bad things. But the point of this is to ask, can you aspire to sit at the first world table when your legs are not working? There are certain things that you must put in place to get there. Can you do that?
What you're saying is like what the leaders should be saying and wondering about and asking themselves such, basic issues. When you have all these challenges, what are you doing about them? And even as we were saying before, whether you're in government or opposition, because government has the priority to help offer solutions to what you have just described. But that does not mean that the opposition cannot also contribute positively to some of those solutions.
Okay.
And then even if one wants to get credit, after the thing is done, each of those two sides can say, this was my contribution towards, the solution of these problems. Because you have just described a situation where we are stuck. And what leadership does is to kind of multiply, those issues so that we are in a permanent, situation of confusion because we are being moved from one crisis to another. And that's like some way of managing the people. And unfortunately, if a lot of the citizens, and we talked about civic education, were able to ask these questions, and that is why from 2023, 2024, 25, 26, the young people are asking those questions, are saying, there is this constitution, it is supposed to be very progressive, it's not being implemented. And if it was, a lot of the solutions would even come from such implementation. This endemic corruption, this, political ethnicity, this unemployment, this... one therefore asks, if you cannot deal with those small issues, not small, they may not be small, like health.
Yeah.
A lot of the money for health is supposed to be a county function. A lot of the money is left at the national level.
Right.
At is it Afia House? Sometimes they call it Mafia House and so on. A lot of money is left there. So if a lot of money is left there and you are telling these poor governors, deliver health, how will they do that? If we begin SHA, it is infected, it's sick with corruption. If we do those kinds of things. So a time is reached. My colleague talked about every good story must come to an end, so that if you have been there, from the 90s, even 80s, you were in politics. When do you realize that, if you haven't grown other people so that they can succeed you, Therefore, it means that you have not even been doing good enough, political work. And you don't hear a lot of that. Actually, we must give credit to the late Raila, Odinga, because like now, people that he grouped, some of them are in broad-based, supporting the president. Others are in Linda Mwananchi. So at least you can say there was some grooming.
Diversity of talent.
he was trying to do. So in all those aspects, if people were sitting together and saying our country is facing a major issue, therefore we must think together. This is not just government and opposition. This is, and let's ask these young people, what solutions do you have? Let's ask other sectors, what are the solutions? And therefore, we can sit pretty and wait for 2027. People do not agree about who has won. And again, we have 2007. And for me, when I sleep and wake up, I'm just thinking about, if we are not careful, 2027 will be another, dangerous point like 2007, 8. If we continue, I'm right, nobody's wrong, people don't come together. And I don't know whether citizens, and particularly the young people, should reach a point where they tell these leaders, now we want a conversation. We want to call you, so that you can tell us, what do you have in store for us? We are young, we have more years in this country, so that they force, quote, conversations. It's not just to wait for a presidential conversation. And even some of the people say, I don't want to get into this conversation and so on. So everybody goes on, So that actually we begin to ask, is national dialogue possible? And who can convene? And what form it will take? Because if we don't kind of do that, we could have a dangerous moment going forward. And if, again, we don't really listen to people to know what they're about, we will just have people coming into power who are not that different from those who are in power.
Lenga, would you reckon, because it's not the first time I'm hearing that 2027, if we're not careful, might be worse than 2007. And that is a chilling reality that each and every single Kenyan must live with. Do you reckon that time to have this conversation is now, that we do not afford any extra time wasted on things that will not bring this country together? And are you seeing willingness, perhaps, from the political class, because it is said that it is them who are pushing us towards 2027, to have this conversation? Or are we waiting until then we need to call another Kofi Annan?
Something that is very important to understand is Prof has participated in electoral contests, and he will tell you that it's not really easy to steal an election in this country. However, we need to give that kind of picture to the citizens by making our systems more transparent and more accountable, so that there is not a moment where someone thinks something wrong could have happened here. But again, how do we ensure that 2027 is a good year where we go into an election, we go home and do our stuff, and we wait for the results? One very important thing in this country is that we need to arrive at a place where political bad behavior has consequences. But as it were, there's no consequences. Like a politician could get away with anything. So if you stand up one day and say, if you have contrary views in this community and you cast your vote to a different person, we're going to fetch you from under your bed. But the next moment, you just pay a fine of 250,000, which you can easily afford. And you go home and you continue spreading that kind of hate. Because these things don't happen as a coup de foudre. It happens, it is a build-up. People speak and people listen. and then people start constructing things, and this is how we're going to deal with these people. This is how we're going to respond if this happens. So let's have a place where the rule of law actually works in this country. That if you are a politician, we must hold you to the highest call of accountability. That if you're the one who messes, then the law must actually take its course so that you are a lesson to those who are also anticipating to do the same thing. But we cannot show and demonstrate to our generations that politicians are above the law. If somebody somewhere pays for what they have spoken, including striking them off the IEBC list that they cannot vie for an election because they have offended this particular election regulations, and they sit back. I mean, it doesn't take more than 5 people to be done so that the other guys can get back into order. We cannot have a country where politicians will want us to kill each other, but they know very well they have sufficient air transport to fly away from this country. Their children study from abroad, but we are the same people, the same neighbors that are going to, harm one another. And these are the same neighbors that respond to you in the middle of the night when you have a problem. So that kind of political accountability and legal accountability must not just be mentioned, but it must be followed. Even our court systems, why do they entertain this? Because tell me why a politician does something, then he goes and gets anticipatory bail and gets orders against their arrest. I mean, if a normal chicken thief in the village is apprehended the same day, if he's not lucky, he might be killed by the people. But then the politician can do anything to whatever length and breadth, but they will not be accounted for. We must start by calling for that. And I think before the election of 2027, just like we had this, I think it was on Monday, we had a joint meeting between the NCIC, the DCI, whatever, talking about how they're going to fix this issue of hate speech and hate mongering. So then we must also have the political parties coming together and the IEBC and the Register of Political Parties, that even if your political party, the member of your political party does that, then you are penalized as a party. So then it fixes our lack of hygiene in our politics.
And these are the conversations that we must have. Time doesn't allow us to go further than this at this point. But that we can be rest assured that these are the things that we will bring up as much as we can. Professor Kivutha Kibwana, as well as Taurus Alenga, thank you very much for joining us both on this conversation this morning.
Thank you.
Asante.
They do continue. Good morning at 9 a.m.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.